guys, welcome back to Spelling and Word Study. My name is Mrs. Rhoades and I'm here to get you started on Unit 13, the TION shun ending. Please take a second to gather your materials. You will need your purple book, open to page 83. You will also need some colorful pens, markers, or crayons. Remember, whatever I mark on my board, you should be marking on your page. Please save room for a key as well. If you don't have room on this paper, a separate sheet of paper is fine. If at any point I'm moving too fast, please pause the video and catch up. All right, so we have been talking about derivational suffixes for the last few weeks. Remember, a derivational suffix takes a word and changes it to a different part of speech. So for instance, a few weeks ago we talked about the suffix iv. We can take that and put it at the end of a verb to change it to an adjective. So create becomes creative, act becomes active. We also learned about the suffix ment, which can also take a verb but change it to a noun. So manage becomes management, excite becomes excitement. And then last week we talked about some suffixes like AR, OR, and ER. So OR in particular can take a verb and change it to a noun and make it mean a person who. So a director is a person who directs. An educator is a person who educates. Today I have a new derivational suffix to talk about, and it is TION. And what this does is it takes a verb and changes it to a noun. So all of the words on your list this week are nouns, but they all have a verb hiding in them. So I want to focus your attention on that. Now you'll notice I already broke the words into syllables using those purple lines, and then I put a brown check mark above the stressed syllable. So that's the one we're going to read a little bit louder and stronger. If you want to pause the video right now to mark up your page, go ahead. All right, let's get started with our list. Please repeat after me. Attention, collection, connection, contraction, description, direction, education, infection, instructions, introduction, operation, population, prescription, production, protection, reduction, reflection, selection, situation, subscription. Lots of big words, but great vocab we should know. So like I said, all of these words end with the shun suffix. And it turns out that there are different rules or patterns that we follow when we take a verb and change it to a noun. So I'm going to show you what those 5 rules are, or the patterns, right now. So let's choose a color and let's look at the word attention. Here's our suffix. But what is the verb we started with? It was attend, right? When you attend to what you're doing, you pay attention. So if I start with the word attend and I want to change it to attention, notice I'm crossing out the D and then I'm adding TION. So over here, what I'm doing is I'm changing, let's see, I'm going to write it this way. Change D to T and then add ION. So change the D to a T and add ION. Let's see if we can find any other words, any verbs that end with a D, like attention. No, I don't see any. So that's the only one this week that's going to follow that rule. That's okay. Let's move on to the next one. Here's our word collection, ends with a TION, but what was our verb here? Yeah, that one's easier, right? It's just collect. So all I did was I took the word collect and added ION. So all we do for these, if a verb already ends with a T, we just add ION. So that's the rule for collection. That's the rule for connection, right? Contraction. Well, if you think about it, if something contracts, it squeezes together. Think about a woman who's about to have a baby. She's going into labor. Her whole stomach squeezes together. It contracts. That's called a contraction. Think about contractions like I'm or your or it's. Two words have been squeezed together to make one new word. Okay, so collect, collection, connect, connection, contract, contraction, direct. Ooh, I'm getting my symbols messed up here. Direct becomes direction. Again, I'm just adding ION. Infect becomes infection, right? If germs infect your body and your body has to fight it off, it's fighting off infection. If you instruct somebody, you tell them what to do or how to do it, you're giving them instructions. What else? Protect. If you protect somebody, you're giving them protection. If the light reflects off your mirror or the glass, you're seeing a reflection. If you select somebody, you choose them to play on your team, you're making a selection. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, I think I got them all. So this rule is pretty straightforward, right? If your verb already ends with a T, you just add ION. What happens though if your word ends with a T sound but a silent E? So for instance, look at number 7 here. Educate, right? If you educate someone, you give them an education. But what do we know about suffixes that end with a vowel? We have to drop that E, right? So that's why we take the E off of educate before we add ION. Same thing with operate. Drop the silent E, add ION. Okay? Same thing with, what's the verb here? Populate, right? When you populate something, let's say you have a pond and you want to be able to fish in it, so you populate it with trout. You're taking a bunch of trout, a bunch of fish, and you're putting them in there to increase the population. Okay, so when you populate something, so you put more people or animals or objects there, you are increasing the population. When you situate yourself somewhere, you're creating a situation. So, did I get all of those? Drop the silent E. 1, 2, 3, 4. I think so. So for all of these, we drop the silent E, and then we add I-O-N. Notice we don't have to add T-I-O-N because we already had the T in the words. All right. So now I skipped number 5. Let's go back to that. The word is description. What is the verb? What is the action that goes with description? Yeah, it's describe, right? When you describe something, you provide description. So look what happens here. Before we can add T-I-O-N, we have to change the IB to IP. Describe becomes descript. Now, we see that here too. Because when your doctor gives you a prescription, what is she doing? She's prescribing medicine, right? So the verb is prescribe. So if we want to add the T-I-O-N, we have to change the IB to IP. Prescribe, prescript. We see that also right here. If you have a subscription to a magazine or a newspaper or a website or a YouTube channel, whatever it is, you can't get a subscription until you subscribe. Once again, we're changing IB to IP, and then we're adding T-I-O-N. So our rule here is change IB to IP, and then add T-I-O-N, add your shun. Okay, we have just a couple words left. We have introduction, production, and reduction. So let's start with this. If you make an introduction, what are you doing? Yeah, you're introducing people to each other. So introduce is my verb here. To get from introduce to introduction, what did I do here? This is different than all the others, right? I basically got rid of my bossy E, which made the U short now. Instead of introduce, now it's introduc. So this is now short. The C is no longer soft. It no longer says S. Now it says K. So that getting rid of that E totally changes the pronunciation of my U and C. And then I add T-I-O-N. So drop the E, add T-I-O-N. Introduce becomes introduc. Production, right? You go to a factory because you want to watch the production of cheese, or you want to watch the production of blue jeans. You want to see how they produce that stuff. So here's your verb. Produce becomes production. We get rid of the silent E and add T-I-O-N. Produce becomes produc. And then one last one right here, reduction. So let's say a company is having money problems and they can't afford to pay for all their employees. They have to reduce their workforce. So instead of paying for 10 employees, maybe they have to reduce it by 10. Now they have 90 employees. When they go from 100 to 90, they have a reduction in their workforce, or a reduction in their employees. So we take reduce and we change it to reduction. Get rid of that silent E, add T-I-O-N. reduce becomes reduct. Okay, so we're going to not get rid of, let's just say drop, because it's shorter. Drop silent E. And then add TION. Okay? The important thing, well, one important thing I want you to realize is as you're dropping letters and changing letters and adding suffixes, you are changing the pronunciation of these words quite a bit. Some letters that used to be soft are now hard. Letters that used to be long are now short. So just notice that. Okay, so 5 different suffix rules that you're following today to turn all these verbs into nouns. Okay, I already talked about the meanings of the words, but I do want to talk about a common root that shows up here and also on page 87. On 87, you're going to learn about the Latin root scribe and script. Anytime you see scribe or script in a word, it will have something to do with writing, okay? Which isn't surprising if you think about a script, like a movie script. Those are all the lines that have been written down, right? In our list here, we have description. Okay, now if you think about a description or describing, a person's not literally writing it down, but they're giving you lots of details about something, right? So it's almost like they're giving you so much information so you can write it on your brain so that you'll remember it. Prescribe, there's scribe, and prescription right there. Back when I was a kid, before we had computers, if I went to the doctor with an ear infection, she would check my ear, say, oh, she's got a double ear infection, and she would take out her notepad, and on her notepad, she would write a prescription for medicine. She'd hand it to my mom and say, take this to the pharmacy, and they will give her amoxicillin or whatever the medicine was. Now your doctors just call in. But in the olden days, they actually had to prescribe stuff by writing it on a piece of paper. Subscribe, there's scribe and there's script. Okay, same thing. Back when I was a kid, if I wanted to subscribe to a magazine, I had to fill out a little postcard or a little piece of paper, put my name and address there, and then send it to the company, and then they would start sending me copies of the magazine or the newspaper. So when you subscribe, you're writing down that you want to purchase something, and then they'll send it to you, okay? So just notice script, 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 scribe, scribe, scribe. All of this stuff is a root. It's a Latin root, and it has something to do with writing. When you get to page 87, you will see these words, but you'll also see things like manuscript, right? If you write a book and you want it published, you're going to send your manuscript to the publisher. If you get a book, a special book for your birthday, maybe somebody inscribed a little note in there. There's an inscription, right? They wrote a special message to you. So there's just lots of different places where you will see this scribe and script show up. All right, that's all I have for you right now. Good luck, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.